In this video, we are going to do knees pinched in a hook lying position. I'm doing this today on the floor on a yoga mat, but this is absolutely an exercise that you could do from a bed if you are not able to get up and down off the floor. I'm also going to take a cushion today. I recommend you trying this with a cushion, and then it's something that as your body kind of opens up a little bit more, you can choose not to have a cushion if you don't want to, but I'll talk you through why you might want one when we get down there. So let's get started. We are going to come to a hook lying position like so. And for this hook lying position, we are looking to have our pelvis on the floor and the entire length of our spine also on the floor or onto the cushion. So the reason that I'm using the cushion is if I didn't have this, what might happen is that my rib cage might lift up. So can you see there that my rib cage is lifting and therefore I'm not grounded through my spine? By changing the angle of my upper body and putting that cushion just kind of where my shoulder blades are, what I then do is I change this angle of my mid back so that my spine is flat to the floor. And I want you to do that for this exercise. If your rib cage is lifted and your lower back isn't grounded, it's not going to give you as much space for you to rotate your hips in the way that we want to. So please do bear that in mind. I've got one cushion here because that's what my body needs to keep me flat through this section, but you might need two cushions or maybe even three cushions. It really depends on the dysfunction that you have through your hips, but also the dysfunction that you have through your upper body as well. So your priority is about cushioning yourself up as much as you need in order to keep this section of your lower back grounded. But importantly, keeping your lower back grounded is not the same as lifting your pelvis up off the floor. So I want you to feel your coccyx, your tailbone, in contact with the floor. Hopefully you can see there. My pelvis is flat. It's not rolling forwards anteriorly into extension, but neither am I gripping my belly and tucking my pelvis under so that my coccyx lifts up off the floor. I have no belly engagement going on. My belly is relaxed. My body is being propped onto the floor by the cushion, and my pelvis is flat and neutral. It's not extended, but it's not flexed either, okay? So for some people, even if you don't think you are, you're gonna have your coccyx slightly lifted off the floor hovering. I want it flat. I want you to feel your coccyx and your sacrum, so basically the bottom of your pelvis and the top of your pelvis touching the floor, and I want your spine to be relaxed with no belly engagement at all. We are not using our abdominals to pull our lower back down to the floor. If we do that, you're going to be way more likely to tuck your pelvis under at the same time, as well as it not being what we want in this exercise. We're going to take our feet so that they are hip width apart on our mat, and we're going to use the sides of our mat as our guide. So I have got the sides of my yoga mat and running through the center of both of my feet. My second and my third toe joints are my marker. So the edge of the mat is running through the second and third toes, and then it's running through the edge of the foot. What I'm not doing is having my toes wider than my ankles. I'm keeping my feet parallel, and that's why using the mat is so helpful. And what we're going to do from here is allow our knees to drop in, but without changing that foot position. So you might notice that as you allow your knees to drop in to kind of touch together, that you want to try and do this, and that's your feet trying to cheat so that your hips don't have to rotate. We need your feet to be parallel, but if the width of your yoga mat is a bit too much for your current function, I'd rather you keep your knees together, but then just slowly inch your feet inwards so that you're reducing the amount of internal rotation you're asking of your hip, but you're still keeping your feet parallel. The width at which you go doesn't matter. I really want you to focus on those feet staying parallel rather than cheating with the feet to kind of trick yourself into thinking that you're rotating more than you are. So as I've done that, so I'm basically in a knock-kneed position. My knees are touching, my feet are wide, and my feet are parallel. They're not like this. and grounded on the floor, my pelvis and my lower back hasn't changed at all. So as I've done that, I've not like lifted my rib cage up, but nor have I tucked my pelvis under and kind of squished my lower back to the floor. My pelvis has stayed completely neutral. My spine has stayed completely relaxed. What we are doing by doing that is asking our knees to internally rotate, to adduct, which means go narrow, but they're also flexing as well. So that's kind of like closing up the front of the hip joint and they're flexing. And we're going to do this exercise primarily to really help wake up some of the muscles around this part of our body. So these lateral hip muscles, things like our TFL, we've got our glute medius, our glute minimus. Those are the muscles that we're predominantly going after here, but you may also feel your inner thighs as well, and that's absolutely fine. So I am trying to teach your hips to internally rotate, to adduct and to flex without the pelvis doing a bunch of stuff to get involved as well. We want the pelvis to relax. We really want the hips to do the rotation and the work here. So once we've established a width of foot that feels appropriate for our body, like I said, you might need to go a bit narrower than this to keep your knees together. I'm passively keeping my knees together at the moment, just kind of checking in like, yeah, is my back flat? Is my breathing steady? We can do our palms facing up, elbow armpits to the ceiling. Just keeping the back of the neck long. We don't want the back of the neck kind of tilting backwards. And when we've established that position, what I want you to do is to actively squeeze your knees together. So by actively squeezing your knees together and holding that holding the squeeze with your knees, you'll hopefully feel your inner thighs start to like buzz and to wake up. But provided that you haven't shifted your pelvic position too much either, you will hopefully then, it might take a few minutes to kind of kick in, or it might take a few days of practice, but you're going to start feeling your lateral hips firing. So for me, practically as soon as I've done this, I'm starting to get a cramp in the outside edge of my right hip. My right hip does not internally rotate very well at all. So I am keeping everything else neutral, so nothing else can cheat. I am literally only asking my hips to do this movement, which my right hip is normally dysfunctional in, so straight away that cramp is coming on that right hand side. So if you do notice cramp, yay, get excited, it means something is switching on and that's wonderful. Obviously shake it off and give yourself a break as you need to, but come back into it as much as you need, because what you will hopefully notice is that the more cramp you get as you do this on the outside edge of your hip, you're going to notice that your pelvis feels more balanced, that your lower back starts to relax down to the floor, that even maybe your shoulder starts repositioning itself. That happens for me. So as I get this cramp in the right side of my pelvis and my hip, everything above it starts to relax more, because everything above it is held in a little bit of rotation, a little bit of imbalance, because this hip isn't behaving itself properly. So I feel my rib cage reposition, I feel my shoulder blade reposition and things like that. Typically, I'd recommend holding this for between 3 and even maybe 10 minutes. You could do this watching the TV, but as it becomes easier for you, so you might initially go through a period of quite hard work or cramping or whatever, but you'll probably find it quite easy quite quickly. Start walking your feet out wider and ask your body for more internal rotation, but remember to keep the feet firstly flat to the floor. So I don't want the soles of your feet coming up like this. The feet have got to stay flat as you do it, but also make sure they're not twisting outwards. They're staying parallel, flat to the floor, and that's going to really challenge that internal rotation of the hip. And remember that we're not scooping under and we're not rolling forwards. The pelvis is flat, the spine is relaxed, and that's just going to give you the space that you need to really switch on the internal hip rotators. If you're scooping up and under, you're not using your internal hip rotators, you're kind of using your extensors to do it. And that's not going to give you quite the impact that we want. So this is knees pinched hooklying. You can do it from a bed. All about internal rotation, adduction and flexion. Great for pelvic balance, and one that I would probably recommend holding even for up to 10 minutes. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon.